All right, so we'll go ahead and kick off our presentation today, the webinar. And before I get started, I have a few housekeeping notes. Um, First of all, my name is Lalit Agarwal, and I'm the Vice President of Energy Management and Sustainability at EnergyCap. And we are very, very pleased that we had a very good response. About 118 people registered for the webinar, and very highly appreciate you all taking some time off your busy schedules to join this webinar, K through 12 Energy Management Best Practices. The K through 12 segment of our Energy Cap customer base is very near and dear to our hearts. Teachers at these school districts are molding the young minds of future entrepreneurs, inventors, leaders of our country and the world. But it's not just the teachers, it's the administrative and facility staff members that ensure that the learning spaces are maintained and they create an optimal teaching and learning environment for all these teachers and young minds. So today we have with us Jennifer Fowler and John Lord. Jennifer is with Orange County Public School District, and John is with Fairfax County Public Schools. And I'll ask them to be a little patient. I'll ask them to introduce themselves in just a little bit. But before I do that, let's do a little bit of housekeeping items. So the webinar here is being recorded, and it will be available at energycap.com and sent to all registrants within probably about 24 hours from right now. If you have any questions, please use the question and answer button at on the Zoom screen to submit your questions. We'll do our best to get to as many questions at the end of the presentation as we can. But if we are unable to do that, or if we don't have time, run out of time, we'll make sure that we will have that answer available to you at a later time through email, and we can do a follow-up later. So we will go ahead and get started with the presentation here. So very high level, we are looking at the agenda here. We are going to do the overview of K through 12 energy management challenges. What does EnergyCap do? What is an energy and sustainability ERP? And then after the first two agenda items, which should take less than 5-10 minutes, we'll jump right into a panel discussion where we will learn from John and Jennifer about the best practices that they are using at their respective districts for proper energy management. And then we'll hopefully have some time at the end for some live question and answer session. So at a very high level, what types of challenges are K through 12 energy management staff facing? Well, first and foremost, they have various types and sources of data that they get. They get utility bills from their utility providers, whether it's water, electricity, natural gas, and not always are they stored in a single data source. Sometimes they're stored in multiple data sources. And when you want to do reporting and dashboarding, you have to go through and get it from different data sources unless you have a single solution. There is a lot of data moving through here. There's a number of bills that come in on a monthly and annual basis that the energy management staff has to deal with. And then the dollars associated, as we will learn very soon from just these two examples, that it's a lot of money. In fact, most school districts, most institutions, they typically have utility bills only as a second line item compared to salaries and benefits. So it's a very high dollar amount that we are working with. And to make matters worse, now the nature of utility accounting is very complex because you may have different rate structures, you may have different types of situations that you're dealing with, depending on what negotiated rates are and all those things that make utility accounting pretty complex. And it's not just the utility cost and consumption. How much we consume also directly relates to how much carbon impact we are making on our planet. So the impact of that energy consumption on sustainability is pretty high. And a lot of times collecting this complex utility data or reporting on this complex utility data can be pretty significant manual effort. So we're going to talk about some of the ways that Jennifer and John have used in their own school districts to make it really easy. And ultimately, the goal behind what these challenges pose for us is an opportunity to make impactful decisions for better stewardship of the resources that the school districts have. So I introduced the term energy and sustainability ERP. So let's dive into what that is. That is how we define it is a comprehensive software platform that serves as a single source of truth for all energy and sustainability data. And this has become very important because we are seeing that energy, sustainability, and accounting teams are actually coming together around the common goals. And it's very vital that all these teams are working from the same foundational data. You don't have situations where the energy manager is making decisions from energy point of view or utility accounting department is making decisions from a dollars point of view. You want to make sure that all of these teams are working from same source of information. And that's what Energy Cap makes possible is all these personalities of energy managers, sustainability leaders, or financial leaders, they're able to use a single system to make their decisions. And not only does Energy Cap serve as a single source of truth, it does that by assembling all the valuable energy sustainability information taken directly from your utility bills in an easily accessible location. And you could have it coming from different sources of information as the visual shows right now. But then how do you convert that sources of information into actionable data? And that's where in energy management, you can do automatic weather normalization, EUI tracking, sustainability reporting, and many other things. From a utility bill accounting, you can do automatic bill entry, bill audit, so you don't overpay your utility provider more than they need to pay. A lot of integrations make it really easy for you to export it to your financial accounting system. And then from building operations point of view, and Jennifer, I think will have some really good stories to share from Orange County Public Schools where they have used Energy Cap to leverage their building operations. So it allows all these different resources to work together and achieve the goal that they want to achieve. And if you haven't heard already, Energy Cap had a pretty big week this week. Just this week on Tuesday, we announced that we are actually acquiring Vortex. It is a Dublin, Ireland-based leader in real-time device-level energy management, analytics, and monitoring software. And the reason behind acquiring Vortex is because it fits perfectly into our product vision by expanding our platform to include the end-to-end real-time building and device level interval data and analytics that is necessary to improve energy efficiency and accelerate the decarbonization efforts that all these teams are trying to accomplish. Energy Cap and Vortex together will become the ideal solution to support and validate the entire customer journey that they are trying to reach net zero. So if you have a need for device level real-time data at your organization, or if you just like to learn more, you can send an email to solutions@energycap.com and we can chat more about it. So that's enough listening to me. I'm now gonna turn around and ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves and their respective school district, and also give us an idea of the scope of work that they are engaged in related to energy management at their respective district. Jennifer, can I put you on the spot and have you go first?
Sure, not a problem. Thank you for the introduction. I am the Director for Environmental Compliance and Sustainability for Orange County Public Schools. I joined the school district in 2008, and prior to that, I worked for the Pasco County School District, which is in the Tampa Bay area. I've been in the environmental field for over 20 years, and as I mentioned, in 2008, when I came on board in 2012, I was part of a team that implemented the first sustainability initiatives and where we developed the long-range sustainability strategic plans. In 2020, Orange County Schools, we reorganized our energy management team to be a part of the sustainability office. And one of the reasons we did this was not only to just support our environmental and indoor air quality programs, but also to bring a focus to energy conservation and sustainability for the school district. A little bit about OCPS. We have 205 schools last school year. We opened 5 schools this year. We had 3 elementary schools, 1 K-8 and 1 middle school open this year, and that's over 206,000 students in our school district. And a little fact is in the last 10 years, we have opened 33 new schools. So we are very much a growing school district. We have 6 transportation garages and depots. We have 3 facility maintenance departments, and we represent over 24,000 employees. We are the 2nd largest employer next to Disney World. We have nearly 33 million square feet of conditioned space and are considered the 9th largest school district in the US. Our utility budget is over $60 million. About $50 million of that comes from electric alone. And with ECAP, our utility bills, we had over 24,000 transactions last year load annually into ECAP. For our EUI, our average in our fiscal year 21 was 44.71, and 44.35 for our EUI was representative of schools only. And with all of that, I have a staff of 7. So I have 3 energy advisors. I have 2 sustainability coordinators. I have 1 database coordinator that manages those and oversees those 24,000 transactions. And I have 1 manager who works with that team. So that's a little bit about Orange County Public Schools.
That's an amazing scale. Those are some large numbers, and you just validated the point I made, is that there is a lot of dollars riding on making sure that we are taking care of those dollars and resources and being the best stewards as we can. Thank you for that introduction, Jennifer. John, can I turn it over to you?
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. So my name is John Lord, and I'm the Energy Management Coordinator for Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia. We're right outside of Washington, D.C. And, you know, if you're not familiar with Fairfax County, that's okay. But it's interesting, Jennifer said that Orange County is the, 10th largest school district in the nation? So I think we're right behind them. So, but 2 very large school divisions, and Fairfax County Public Schools has been doing energy management in one way or another for a very long time. You know, going back to my colleagues in the past, they would do energy management with spreadsheets, and they would do energy management on paper, and they would do hand calculations, and it was, you know, so they were doing a lot of the work that now Energy Cap will do for an energy management and for an energy management team. In terms of the size of our schools division, we have about 197 schools, and you can see all these numbers up there. But I'm sad to see that we're about 5,000 kBTU per square feet worse than Jennifer. So, you know, we'll come back for a rematch next year. But
I like the spirit of competition there.
That's right. But the thing that, you know, you have to take what you get. We started using Energy Cap in, I think, 2014. And I started working for the school division in 2019. And we started with a whole new team of specialists who their main job really is to work with people and work on behaviors and work on the way that we use energy, because buildings don't really use energy, people use energy. And so we want to manage the educational process, not only with our students, but also with our teaching staff, you know, our faculty, with our support and operations staff, with our students, and with our parents, and even with community members, because our schools are kind of like little independent cities in some ways. They're used a lot. In terms of our program, we have somewhere close to 10,000 utility bills every year. We have a team of 28 people who are in the energy management section. They do different jobs. Some of them do work with building automation system controls. Some are those energy specialists who work with people to educate them on their behaviors. We have a team that replaces obsolete building automation control systems. And then we have me. So one coordinator who tries to juggle all the balls at once. This graph here is something I am pretty proud of. We're not down to where Jennifer is, but we are on the way down. We've been bringing our energy use and our greenhouse gas emissions down. At the same time, the school division's been growing, not quite at the pace that they've been growing, but it's interesting. We were asked the question when we first started this, can we comment on growth? And so I did look to see what data there is on growth. And we are in kind of an interesting area. We actually have right now today approximately the same number of students we had in 2012. And the COVID pandemic made people decide what they wanted to do, whether they wanted to send their children to school, keep them home, put them into parochial schools, private schools. And so I think we're going to be back on the major growth scale here very, very soon. But we took a little dip. So it looks like we've been flat for a decade, but that's not really true. So anyway, that's a little bit about our school division and some of what we've been doing with Energy Cap and how we've been effective with managing our energy.
Thank you so much, John. I was thinking about when you said that you're 5 kBTU per square foot more than Jennifer, and trying to rationalize why that may be. And I may have an explanation. And the explanation is that when it's really, really hot in Orlando, most students are home. But when it's really, really cold in Virginia, they are actually inside the school. So
yeah, ASHRAE Zone 3 versus ASHRAE Zone 5, right?
Exactly. So I think there is a little bit of that, but 49 and 44, they're both amazing numbers in my mind. So you all, I'm sure, are, and as you should be, proud of it. And I think these are some pictures of your staff that are showing off some of the schools and
yeah, these are some of the
certificates.
schools that have earned an Energy Star over the years. We've been an Energy Star partner for a very long time. We've been a partner of the year and a sustained excellence partner of the year, and we've earned an Energy Star at 168 locations. And each star is good for 1 year, so you have to renew it if you want. We've earned over 600 stars since we've been participating. So we're really proud of our partnership with the EPA and the Energy Star program. And that's one of the things that Energy Cap actually will allow a school division to support. If you want to be a participant in that program, it's built right in.
Right, that's awesome. Thank you very much for your introduction, both of you, actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the death by PowerPoint and turn it into a more conversational style here. That way we can really share the best practices in a way that is very engaging for our audience here today. So clearly, both of you have a very challenging, but at the same time, very rewarding jobs. Especially when you have such impressive results that you have to share with us. So let's continue that conversation and dig deeper. So at a very high level, you gave a very good overview of what your school district is comprising of and what your challenges are at a very high level. Let's start digging a little deeper. And John, this one I'm going to come to you first. So can you give me an overview of what your organization's energy management processes used to be before Energy Cap, and if you can remember, and how Energy Cap streamlined, revolutionized, changed your energy management practices?
Yeah, that's a good question. So prior to the use of Energy Cap, the energy management section was really heavily focused on controls. It was really the purpose of the energy management section was just, can we or can we not use automated controls? Put a building, schedule it into occupied mode, schedule it into unoccupied mode. There wasn't necessarily a large focus on how does that relate to the budget. There was just an assumption that if you're doing that, well, of course that's good. And it is, I'm not criticizing, but it was rudimentary in some respects. And the previous administration, I guess, of our energy management section was really heavily into the engineering calculations. They really wanted to look at the data from an engineering point of view, which again is good, but the way it's changed now is we're really looking at the energy use at a meter level. And the Energy Cap program gives you that ability to look at it from a building down to a meter. You can look at a specific billing period. You can look at the trends. We have a lot of buildings, and I suspect many K-12 people have kind of prototype or cookie cutter buildings. You know, you've got school A, school B, school C, and except for the fact that they were built in a different place, they may as well be the same school. And so, you know, where in the past, the concept was, well, is school A operating well? Is school B operating well? Is school C operating well? Now you can say, well, how do A and B compare to C? And why is C doing so well? Or why is C doing so poorly? And it also will allow you to really look at things that you can overlook, you know, things that the creep of the energy use over time. You can look at, well, what did you do if you were able to implement a really solid setback or shutdown over a vacation period? You know, could you, you know, I guess there's always this sort of struggle between operational staff and instructional staff. And instructional staff think, you know, we're too dumb to do anything over here in operations. And operations staff think, well, these two people are too high in the sky and lofty. They may be smart, but they've got no common sense. They can't do anything right. But in the long run, the Energy Cap kind of proved the point that, well, if we come together and use our strengths, we can actually benefit from using good behaviors, good best practices that apply across the board. So that's really been a great thing to do.
That's amazing. And so basically going back to the age-old cliche of you can't manage what you don't measure. So you're finally able to measure directly from a dollar's perspective, which is where it hits the pocketbooks, the impact of all the good things that your engineering team was already doing, but they were making estimates where now you actually have the data to prove that they're doing a good job.
Right.
That's
Well,
amazing.
and if you're interested in like just are you doing something, because it's sort of a new and evolving industry, it's easy to prove you're doing something. But as the industry gets more mature, you're going to look for some key performance indicators. You know, what's your energy use intensity? What's your dollars per square foot? And until we had Energy Cap, those pieces of data were really, really difficult to dig out. You could do it, but you were going to be working hard. Now it's a 30-second report.
Nice. Yeah, and you can probably answer it with a higher level of confidence than if you had put it together manually using multiple spreadsheets. Yeah, that's true. Well, thank you very much for that, John. Jennifer, I'll turn that same question to you, the before and after process from energy management perspective for Orange County.
Yeah, so, you know, I mentioned earlier that in 2020, we did the reorganization. And so prior to that team coming under the sustainability purview, the Energy Cap was, and that our database coordinator actually, she really just did data entry, hand manual entry of the electric and the water data. We weren't actually capturing the solid waste and recycling data, which Energy Cap, while it's, you know, it's still it's a utility function. And so that actually fell under the sustainability team. So now moving that in 2020, we actually can now add that in. And we're adding that data, but we're also, you know, utility bills aren't just you spent, you know, your KWH was this and you spent X dollars. And utility bills are fairly complex. And there's a lot of other little added charges that go in there with fire and the water. And so you know, we now capture all of that. And we now took out that person from being a database entry, where she was, you know, we're just having to take that time of enter all of those numbers into the system. We went and we've implemented the bill capture. And so now it's automated. So now I'm not waiting on my, you know, accounts payable for all of these bills. Majority of this is all being automated and directly uploaded, which now allows us to flag and identify issues with those bills and look for recovery opportunities. And so now my database coordinator is no longer data entry. she's really looking at, being able to actually look at the bill sum and, and then send that to my energy advisors and be able for us to investigate that information. And I think the other piece with the reorganization is now we are working hand in hand with our fiscal services division on budget planning. So whereas, and John was talking about this, is that the budget, so now rather than just putting a number to your utilities cost, how do you make that as precise and accurate as you can, right? Because if you do that, then you're actually freeing up the general operating dollars to be used elsewhere, and for purposes it should be in the classroom and other programs. So how do we manage that? And I think having accurate data, as you mentioned, that you're able to do that with the program. And I want to jump on also from one of the things John was saying was, being able to look at that data in real time and quickly is the dashboards of having dashboards set up so that, my energy team has that at their fingertips. And we were just in a meeting today talking about how we look at that data and then how do we disaggregate that data and how do we take that data to be able to make it and do assessments, and where do we use that data to move it forward, and where do we need to take that to have change made in the district for improvements? Who do we take that to? So I think those are ways that we're able to use the program and to move it forward.
Very nice. And you just proved two of my assumptions. One is I mentioned in the beginning of the overview that we are dealing with lots of money here, but we are also trying to bring those teams together. So rather than the budget team doing their budgeting without ever consulting with you, you're now saying that those partnerships are forming where you're again able to sing from the same sheet of music, so to speak, and able to free up the money that can go into the classroom, help with the student education, help with student success. That's amazing. The other thing that I've heard from other customers of Energy Cap is it's not that we had somebody doing manual work and now we are automating it, meaning that they don't have a job anymore, but it's more that you can now redirect them to do more value-added jobs rather than just data entry type work. So that's another way I think you shared that Orange County was able to leverage that. That's amazing. Appreciate both of you sharing that. And just to dig a little more deeper, you kind of shared a little bit of this already, but this time I'm going to come to you, Jennifer, first, is what other advanced features of Energy Cap that you use at your school district, leveraging beyond the basic utility information management? So you've either are using that beyond utility information management, or you're planning on doing that, either.
I was taking notes actually as John was talking earlier, because I still think there's so much potential that we haven't jumped into. So there were things he was mentioning. I was like, oh, maybe I need to do that. So I still think that we're still learners, and there's still so much that we can get from this data and what we're using. I mentioned that the dashboards, but then by adding in the square footages to our buildings, right? And then we've talked about the EUI numbers, right? That all of that leads us to be able to talk about who our high consumers are. And then then we can go in and look further as to utilization, and then coordinate with our energy controls team, which we have a team that's still over there that's part of the building automation system controls, and working with that team. We work very closely hand in hand with our facilities maintenance team to make sure equipment's functioning, to see where we do have issues and what repairs, so we can really talk to each other. So I think, again, the collaboration and the communication is huge. And then another area where we use ECAP is, I mentioned the solid waste recycling data that is being entered also. But we have master service agreements with one of our utility companies, where we have LED retrofitting program. And so through adding that information into our energy cap, then we're able to manage that master service agreement with our utility and make sure that that billing is happening appropriately and that it's ending the way it's supposed to through that MSA. So, I think there's just so many more ways of rebates, capturing rebate money that's coming through. There's just so many pieces you can add into ECAP. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and there are plenty more that as we keep adding features, you will be able to leverage those too. John, thoughts?
Yeah, so I didn't really share this at the beginning, but I've worked in 3 different school divisions using Energy Cap. One very tiny school division with 3 schools, very small, and then a medium-sized school division with about I guess they have 87 schools now, but so half the size of where I am. But so I've seen the small and the medium and the large. And I will tell you that at all 3 of those school divisions, they all started with some similar problems that we were able to fix through using Energy Cap. One of them was, you would think it's not a problem, but it really is. The bills that you get in many cases are routed first to an accounting office, some like an accounts payable or a budget of finance team, whoever they may be called in your organization. And then they would pay them. They really wouldn't look at them necessarily. I mean, maybe they would. I don't want to insult those people, but they didn't necessarily have anything to base, any kind of challenge for whether that data is accurate or whether it's appropriate or not. Because all they would do is look at, is this about the same as we paid last year? Okay, pay it. Does this look like it's probably a legitimate bill that's ours? I can't really say, but it came to our address, pay it. And so now what we actually have been doing, we also in Fairfax have been using the bill capture program. And so the bills come directly into Energy Cap. And rather than have a finance group or an accounts payable group look at them, our team looks at them and we give them a pretty deep analysis of whether they make sense or not, and if we don't approve them, they don't get paid, not until we're ready to approve them. And so they have the general ledger codes built into Energy Cap, and we have the API, the electronic interface with our accounts payable system. When we hit the approve button, for all intents and purposes, the check gets written and sent out to the utility. And so we use it to actually pay our bills. And it's been a huge improvement. And we've really found a lot of errors that we'll talk about more in kind of the success stories, but things that are outside of the normal use of Energy Cap, that bill capture it's a special feature. You have to, buy it extra, but it's worth every penny of it, or at least it has been for us. Another special feature that Energy Cap has is the ability to interface with the Energy Star portfolio manager tool. And I really do love Energy Star, and I love the EPA and the programs that they're doing. But I will say that it's sort of a challenge to use Portfolio Manager as your database. In my opinion, Energy Cap has a lot better reporting options and things. And if you're using Portfolio Manager, it's a good tool, but I would say Energy Cap's a much more effective tool. But if once you've put it into Energy Cap, you can have the one button update and all of your data goes into Portfolio Manager. And then it will come right back into Energy Cap, and you can actually see what your Energy Star scores are, and you can take and do your next moves. And so another thing that's sort of outside of the normal scope of energy management, recently we've had a lot of focus on ventilation in buildings, and with the COVID pandemic and the realization that ventilation is much more important than anyone ever used to think it was, my team, the energy management group, has been installing CO2 sensors and doing data logs in buildings. We've done over 2,000 logs and logged many locations in every single one of our buildings. And we've identified all kinds of ventilation problems. And we really thought, we truly believed that when we repaired these ventilation problems, when you put exhaust fans back into service, when you open the outside air dampers on your unit ventilators, when you're going to have to condition a larger amount of outside air, we thought for sure we were going to spend a whole lot more money on utilities. It turned out to be just the opposite. When we actually had everything working right, when we weren't having to fight to try to force air into a building that was pressurized because there was no exhaust, when we were, when everything was functioning as it is designed to function, believe it or not, it's much more efficient. And we were able to prove that with Energy Cap. And so, that's something we're looking to try to publish at some point, but we haven't really prepared ourselves to publish it yet because, try as hard as you might, you can't fix everything. And so we don't want to create a panic with the places where we still have opportunities to improve.
Yes.
But it was really counterintuitive. It was really amazing.
Wow.
And I'll just say one last thing about the advanced features of Energy Cap. If any of you are interested afterwards, and I'm sure in Lalit's follow-up email, he can send you a link to our Get to Green website. We actually have an interactive dashboard that's available on the general internet. It's powered by Energy Cap. And you can pick any school, any group of schools, and you can look at it on a map, and you can dig into its carbon footprint. You can dig into its energy use and its energy costs. And, so this way, when we have students that are really excited about, project-based learning, and they're trying to create a solution to a problem, and they're trying to gather the data and locate subject matter experts, sure, they can ask us and we'll be happy to help them, but they can also do the research independently, and they have the exact same access. I mean, they can't edit it, but other than that, they have the exact same access to Energy Cap data that I have. And so it's really cool, and they can really learn a lot. And that's something that we're just sort of beginning to find the value of the widgets that they're referred to as, that allow you to have a dashboard. We've really looked recently at a power outage widget, which will help our satellite maintenance staff to be able to manage power outages, because Energy Cap actually has a mapping tool, and it will allow you to select the school. You'll see the address, you can see the account. If you want to, you can make it so that logged in users can see your account numbers. If you don't want to, you can protect that from people who aren't logged in.
Mm-hmm.
But if for the purposes of our staff, we need them to see the account numbers so they can report to the utility what the problems are. And
Right.
then they can also share that link to whoever they need to say, well, here's the building that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's been we still investigating how we're going to use that, but we see it as a huge opportunity.
Right. That's amazing. Thank you very much for sharing all the interesting and unique ways that you're using. And it makes my heart so big right now that you're actually leveraging all the functionality that the developers of Energy Cap has worked really hard to create. So fantastic. And I just made a note for myself to make sure that when we send the recording to all our registered attendees, that we will include the link to that dashboard.
Yeah, and if for some reason anybody forgets, or you're just dying to look it up, just type in FCPS, like Fairfax County Public Schools, get GET to green, and it'll bring it right up.
Nice, very nice. That's excellent. So moving on, so you kind of shared about overall the program, then some specific advanced ways you're using Energy Cap. Could both of you take some time and share with us some specific success stories of how Energy Cap helped you identify either an energy or a cost-saving opportunity, and then maybe realize some other value related to energy management? John, maybe we'll start with you again.
Sure. So Energy Cap, like, I guess one of the most hard to imagine if you're not a professional in this field, if you haven't gone through it yourself. But I can tell you again, because I've worked in 3 different school divisions, and the small one, the medium one, and the large one all shared something in common. They all were paying for bills that didn't belong to the school division.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of the very small school division, they were paying for the county courthouse. The sheriff's office and the courthouse were all utility bills that were not public school bills, but we were paying for them for decades. And nobody knew until we did the inventory as we went through building the database in Energy Cap. In the medium-sized school district, we had built a new school, and we were working with a small incorporated town, and we had to upgrade the water supply service for the town. So we had built on the corner of a piece of property, which we then proffered to the town, a water tower, and we were paying for the water bills through the town, but we were also paying the electric bill for the pumps for the water tower for the whole town. And it's because no one had ever turned it over to the town.
You are such awesome people taking care of the whole town.
It was very nice of us. Yeah, it was very,
Exactly.
but we weren't spending money on teaching kids. We were spending it on unnecessarily high utility bills, which is sort of the purpose of our job, to stop the one and do more of the
Correct.
other. But in the big school division, we were looking at some of the lighting that we have. We have leased lights at some of our locations for the parking lots. We lease them from the utilities rather than install and own our own lights. Well, we hadn't done a good inventory of that. And when I got here, we were paying for a volunteer fire station. We were paying for a parking lot that we had purchased the lights from the utility. So we were paying it on a utility bill as a metered bill. We were still paying the leased lights bill, and no one had ever done away with the first bill. And so these things are really just best practices. And you would think, well, wouldn't anybody anywhere do this? Well, yeah, of course, it makes sense. But what's going to be the driving factor? Why are you going to do this? Well, when you put your data into Energy Cap and you build out the database, you put in the names of your locations, you put in the account numbers, and you do the inventory, you take the next step and you go ahead and correlate that to the field. Is this meter real? What does it serve? Can I find it? And if you can't find it, and if you don't know what it serves, then you keep digging till you do find it and you find out what it serves. And if it's not yours, turn it over to somebody else. So that's one that we've had some really great success with Energy Cap. And then I guess if I were going to say that the next thing I would say that is really good with Energy Cap is we have found in one case, we had a school. It was a relatively new school. It had just been completed construction maybe 18 months prior. And we had this prototype example. There's school A and school B. They're virtually exactly the same. Well, school A was running at almost 80% more of the cost for electricity than the other school. And we couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. And eventually I was walking the building overnight and I was like, okay, I didn't know. I would never have known to go to that building. I would have thought it was just fine. But we started digging and digging and digging. Something's wrong. And all it was a tiny little relay, an electronic circuit relay through an interlock that connected the makeup air unit to the exhaust fan in the kitchen. And so if the exhaust fan was running, it required the makeup air unit to running. And so the relay was broken. It never sent a signal to tell the makeup air unit, okay, now you're allowed to turn off. And this was something that was buried deep in the programming of the building automation controls because it's a fire suppression system requirement. It's built into the life safety systems programming. It's something you don't really look at for energy management. But boy, did it ever cause a lot of cost because we were air conditioning and heating the cafeteria and the kitchen 24/7, 365. And that's a huge area. And we would probably have never caught it or not caught it for many years if we didn't have Energy Cap to really look at it and see what was strange at that site.
Nice. That's amazing. Jennifer?
Sure. So I'm going to kind of give you a couple of examples when we were discussing these questions. I immediately asked my team. I said, "Hey, do we have a couple of really good examples?" And I got a response probably in a couple minutes of some really good, events where we've been able to save the district money. We have an elementary school where our utility provider, the electric bill was over $42,000 and the normal bill is around $16,000. So ECAP flagged that and we were able to contact our utility electric company, and they realized that they had recorded the meter incorrectly, and we got that corrected on the invoice. So I mean, you're looking at quite a significant dollar that if we hadn't identified that would have just been a normal, we just paid that bill. And on the water side, we also have a partnership with our utilities on the water where our vendor notified us, or utility vendor notified us of a water leak at a high school. It took a few days to find the water leak with our maintenance team, but our bill was $100,000. And we submitted a leak adjustment form to that, and we monitored that flag, and we were able to recover $80,000 back to the school district. So, ways in which, ECAP flags and monitoring, it takes a few months. So you have to man, it's easy where you just may get an email, but if something takes months to get back, you may forget about it. This way, flagging, having that where you see it, you can keep on top of it. So it's just a couple examples.
That's amazing. So you were able to actually get the money back actually from the utility. That's awesome. So typically, when I'm talking to customers, some of them are just using Energy Cap as they need, but I'm thinking that the two of you, especially, I would classify you under more as advanced or power users of Energy Cap. What plans do you have in the next 3 to 6 months or so to adjust or enhance the usage of Energy Cap in your school district? And can you share some of those details with our audience? Jennifer, you want to go first in this one?
Sure. So in our school district, we're working on putting, our construction team is working on a new prototypes for our schools. And we have in our sustainability plan for 2030, reducing our overall EUI for the school district. And so I've been part of that planning process on the engineering side, and for developing those prototypes. And we're using the EUI data and the cost per square foot and the annual costs as part of that. So we're actually using this data for designing and helping to design high performance buildings. And so that, I think, is going to really help us work towards our long-term goals. Yeah.
That's a very interesting use of Energy Cap. So are you using just the envelope design or even the HVAC and other equipment inside?
Yeah, HVAC specifically, really working on the HVAC and the, how did that part of the engineering team is, mechanical teams are working on that, and they're asking for the data, and I'm part of those conversations.
That's amazing, because the school wasn't built in one day. You have so many generations and so many iterations of systems, but Energy Cap is able to identify these may be the top 5 that you may want to consider, and then depending on what the need of the school is, you can pick the best of those. That's right. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're able to look at the schools that were just built several years ago, and we know what designs they used, and we can now look into that and say, what is our EUI now for those schools, and look to how do we want it to be in the future.
It's nice. John?
Yeah, that's obviously a trend. I mean, Jennifer's hitting right on what I think many, especially the school divisions that are the larger school divisions that have maybe more politically active school boards and things, we're all going to be looking at how do you move in the direction of net zero carbon, whether it's going to be expanded to all aspects of carbon neutrality or just your energy carbon neutrality. We're all going to be looking at using greenhouse gas emissions inventories more and understanding how we can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. We're all going to be looking at renewable energy and potentially, PPAs. Potentially, you'll be buying your own renewable energy assets and putting them in schools. But all of the tracking of that data, we know we're going to be using it for Energy Cap for that purpose. We're going to need to know what kind of energy consumption have we been using. And so we've been looking at the possibility, Jennifer's doing it now. We haven't done this yet because we really don't have a good metering system yet, but the idea of managing waste and trying to make a net zero waste goal come into effect, you can do that within Energy Cap. And so that's something we're going to be looking at. Can we do that? How can we do that? We're going to be looking at how we can share the data more widely. Right now, we have the data set on the website, which people can look at, but we know that we have people who have specific interests, specific outcomes they'd like to see happen. And so the idea of being able to make reports and make widgets and make dashboards that serve a particular purpose. So we're sort of doing some analysis of who could be a potential end user and what might they be looking for. We've been looking at how we would take our greenhouse gas emissions inventory. Our Energy Cap is right now our source for the energy on stationary emissions, scope 1 and scope 2 stationary, but we're not tracking our scope 1 and scope 2 mobile emissions. That's done through a transportation software package called M5 that I really am not familiar with, but that's how we keep track of the diesel fuel we use in buses and the gasoline we use in cars and any other equipment that we might power with something that we burn in a mobile source.
Right.
And so the idea of being able to incorporate that data into Energy Cap directly, and we've even been looking at right now, we use the Climate Partners and World Resources Institute greenhouse gas emissions protocol. And so we need to track our fugitive refrigerant gas emissions as well. So that's been of all the pieces of our greenhouse gas emissions inventory, that's the most complex. Because you have to have a CFC license to even touch the stuff.
Right.
And then you have to be able to contain it, and you have to be able to measure it. You have to be able to transfer it from container to container, and you have to be able to track it. And if you don't reclaim it, well, then you have to declare it lost. Because if you have a hole in a coil and you release some refrigerant, it's a shame. And sure, it would be nice if that never happened, but reality is it does happen.
Right.
And so you have to track that and count that as one of your emissions. But it's such an antiquated and backwards manual system that we're using right now. We'd really love to see Energy Cap work, and we think we can set it up as a utility, but we don't know exactly how yet. So maybe we'll
I can show you
something with you at some point.
Actually, we can do that right now, so I'll show you sometime. Terrific.
Okay, so that's something we don't have. And one of the real things, I guess, with any use of Energy Cap, and not telling anybody something that we don't already know, but if it's garbage data in, you're going to get garbage data out. You have to start with your genuine article utility bills. You have to verify they're your utility bills. So if you put the right data in, you'll get good data out. Right now, we still are working on making sure we have good tracking of those refrigerant reclaiming and losses, because I'm not confident we do right. We have the best we have, and you can only expect of yourself that you should do the best you can, and you can't expect any more than that. But we're looking at what can we do better? Can we really track this more realistically and more like you said at the beginning, real and verifiable data, like the rest of the stuff in Energy Cap?
Right. So we are down to the last 5 minutes. I'm gonna look at the questions here that are being asked and see if we can quickly answer them in the next 5 minutes. So one question that has come in is, what were your best strategies for getting students, faculty, and community involved or concerned enough to change behavior to participate in your goals? Either one of you can take it if you feel strongly about it.
Well, I could take a quick shot at it. I think the biggest factor for students and staff right now is when you explain that energy management is environmental impact. It is environment. Like we are a sustainability office, even though we're not called a sustainability office. Whenever you look at, wouldn't it be great to have renewable energy? Well, yeah, it would, but wouldn't it be even better if you just didn't use that energy? You don't have to capture the resources to create that generation capacity. What if you just had a more efficient building? And and those impacts that people are looking at, you know, the what does it cost economically? That's interesting for students and staff. But what does it cost environmentally? That's motivational for students and staff.
Right. Jennifer, you have any thought on that question?
You know, I think one way that for teachers and students is looking at ways that what we do aligns to these standards. So where, you know, we know that climate and renewable energy is being taught in schools. So how can we take that to our teachers and align that with where they are in the standards?
Nice.
And then give them, you know, that project-based learning. And how can we do that? So we also have like we have a Green Schools Recognition Program, which is a sustainability incentivized program that we align with. We do part of teach-in. So we go into schools and we teach students. And so, you know, being a part of, you know, the core function of the school district, which is to educate children and take that as real world based approach and align it with what they're doing and making sure they understand that is another way.
Nice. John, this one is targeted towards you. So somebody's asking, may I ask John what the other two issues that the schools promoted moving to Energy Cap? I think you may have mentioned that you had three issues and only covered one.
Well, I worked for 3 different school divisions, so maybe that's where the 3 came
Oh,
from.
gotcha.
I'll say this, just if, you know, people have asked me regionally, like we have a partner, colleague, peer school division just across the Potomac River in Maryland, in Prince George's County, where the University of Maryland is located. And the people in Prince George's County were looking at, you know, why might they choose Energy Cap? And so I said to them, you know, well, what you are going to be able to do with Energy Cap is you're going to be able to take control of the billing process. You know, you're going to be able to make a very strong case that why would you pay it before you validate it?
Right.
Why would you pay it and then go back and hunt for refunds? Validate it first and then pay it. I said another thing that you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to create that really strong inventory of what are you paying, why are you paying it, where are you paying it? And then the final thing that I would have said if I was going to do 3 is that you really are going to be able to have the automated review, the alarms and the notifications when something is out of the norm. That you know, yeah, you can eyeball it and you can guesstimate it, but why? Why not just let Energy Cap calculate it and tell you, you know, here's your places where you should start looking. One of the things we can control about our lives is how do we devote our time, energy, and attention to things. And so if we can find a way to devote our time, energy, attention to things that we know are going to be productive, that's good practice. If we just say, well, maybe we'll be productive, that's not really good practice. And Energy Cap gives you that ability to know that what you're doing is likely to be productive.
Gotcha. Well, we are at the top of the hour. And with that, I want to first of all thank both of you, Jennifer and John, for taking time, sharing your experiences and providing some advice to many other energy engineers and energy managers that are on the call today, sustainability managers. I hope that our attendees learned something new and some key takeaways from improving your own potential workflows to energy management and sustainability processes. Thank you again for attending this Energy Cap webinar, and we hope to see you at future ones as well. Have a great rest of your day.